Today, we will take a look into the famous worldwide war that caused tremendous amounts of damage, lasted more than 4 years from 1914, and, centering around Europe, eventually involved many countries around the globe, the First World War. Put simply, World War I was a huge battle between the Central Powers of Germany and Austria-Hungary versus the allies of France, Britain, and Russia. These countries involved the whole world into their battle. Before getting into the overview, let's take a look at the world situation at that time. Germany in 1871 was doing relatively well, having just beaten France and undergoing huge repairs. At the same time, however, they were exhausted by repeated wars. Fearing retaliation from France, Germany formed an alliance with neighboring countries of Austria-Hungary and Italy called the Triple Alliance, and promised to help each other when necessary. In addition, Germany formed friendly relations with neighboring countries such as Britain and isolated France from Europe. However, when Wilhelm II was crowned German emperor in 1888, situations drastically changed. The emperor held pan-Germanism views, an idea that Germans were superior above all and that they should have the right to rule the world. Based on this idea, there was a movement to invade the Balkan Peninsula located in the south. As a result, Russia, which had been actively trading with the areas in the Balkan Peninsula, became far more vigilant against Germany. In addition, Germany had adopted a 3B policy that targeted the making of a railroad that connected Germany, Turkey, and Iraq, aiming an expansion into the Middle East. As a result, the United Kingdom, who were too designing a railroad at that time, also kept watchful over Germany. France, which had been isolated from Europe, saw this situation as an opportunity. They laid eyes on Russia, whose relations with Germany had deteriorated at that time, and by providing financial assistance and getting closer with the country, formed a Franco-Russian alliance in 1891. From then on, as Germany continued expanding its power, an anti-Germany movement from surrounding countries in Europe also expanded. Then, in 1904, Britain and France formed a cordial agreement to counter Germany's economic buildup. This meant the two were allies in trade and negotiations between countries, but unlike alliances, wartime cooperation was not included. Furthermore, in 1907, an Anglo-Russian cooperative was formed between Britain and Russia. They too were similarly aware of Germany. In this way, the Triple Entente, where France, the United Kingdom, and Russia cooperated with each other, was completed. The United Kingdom also formed an Anglo-Japanese alliance with Japan, a country then the first in Asia to undergo industrial revolutions, in order to prevent Germany from expanding into Asia. The above is the overview of the world situation before World War I. From here, an incident that directly causes the World War finally occurs in Sarajevo, the Balkan Peninsula. At that time, Bosnia on the Balkan Peninsula was occupied by Austria-Hungary, a German ally. Serbia, which was very close to Bosnia, was alert, thinking that they may be the next target of occupation. Meanwhile, on June 28, 1914, Prince Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife visited the town of Sarajevo in Bosnia under the guise of military reconnaissance. At that time, Serbian youths who were vigilant of Austro-Hungarian occupation formed an organization and assassinated the prince and his wife. This was the Sarajevo incident, an incident that led directly to the First World War. The event only naturally stirred up great anger in Austria-Hungary. A letter was sent to Serbia with 10 requests called the ultimatum, urging them to respond by July 25th. It is thought that the conditions in the ultimatum was not something that could be followed at all, and was originally just an excuse to start a war. "It is the most horrifying document a country has presented to another," said the British foreign minister. When Serbia failed to follow the 10 demands, Austria-Hungary declared war on July 28, 1914. In addition, Germany, due to the alliance with Austria-Hungary, announced that it will also participate in the war. In response, Russia, who had been actively trading with the Balkan Peninsula, expressed its support for Serbia. In response to that, Germany declared war on Russia and its ally France on August 1st and 3rd. Another 4 days later, in attempts to increase the course of attack on France, Germany asked their neighboring country of Belgium for permission to pass the army through. However, Belgium, which had been neutral, refused the request. In response to that, Germany declared war on Belgium and launched an attack. Following the attack on Belgium, Britain, which was initially silent, made a move. Britain has signed a treaty with Belgium called the Treaty of London to protect it, and thus declared war on Germany accordingly. As a result, Japan, which had an alliance with Britain, was also pulled into the war. On the other hand, Italy, which had an alliance with Germany, stayed neutral because of their battle over territorial disputes with Austria-Hungary. However, after Britain offered to fully cooperate with Italy on the territorial dispute, Italy betrayed Germany and turned over to the British side. In this way, a battle between the central powers of the World War, led by Germany and Austria-Hungary, and the Allies led by France, Russia, and the United Kingdom, broke out into World War I. On August 12th, Austria-Hungary tried to advance into and occupy Serbia, but was instead fought off by the country. This Serbian victory was an unexpected outcome for many, and also an important first victory for the Allied forces. While then, the opposing central power of the World War, Germany, was also doing well. After winning the battle with Russia located in the east, Germany continued to attack France in the west. However, due to the even fight-off by the French army, by the time the British reinforcements arrived, the German army, that had been very close to victory, was forced to withdraw. In this way, the situation of progressing and retreating continued, and the war seemed to have entered a never-ending cycle. It was during World War I that many modern weapons were developed, and new tools were used in the raging war under the evolving civilization. Machine guns greatly developed during this period and were particularly used actively. In the past, guns were limited to approximately 30 shots per minute. Yet, with the new machine gun, around 300 shots were able to be fired per minute. This was an invention of a weapon on a whole new level. As a result, each country switched to ambush operations using trenches, but this change in strategies further prolonged the war. Thereafter, weapons continued to develop and were actively used by each country, and many weapons such as aircraft, poisonous gas, and tanks were created and used. Meanwhile, Germany laid eyes on the submarine in facing the prolonged war. February 1st, 1916, Germany announced an unrestricted submarine operation. This operation was issued by Germany while they were suffering from material depletion in aims to destroy enemy ships carrying supplies. But they did not only target military ships, but all ships including civilian ones. As a result, many civilians suffered damage, and it seemed to be more of a slaughter than strategy. However, this act later developed into a situation of disadvantage to Germany. It all began when Germany attacked a British cruise ship, killing many of the civilians on board. With this incident, a great power country that had never been involved in the past made a move. That country was indeed the United States, a country that had grown to be at the same level of power as the great powers of Europe at that time. The passenger ship that was sunk by Germany had as many as 128 American passengers on board. Furthermore, the United States had lent money to several countries on the side of the Allies, and thinking that the debts could not be collected if the trading nations lost the war, the US declared war on Germany on April 6, 1917. Then, in 1918, after 4 long years of war, a large number of healthy US troops landed in Europe with an abundant number of supplies. As a result, the German side collapsed all at once, and the armistice agreement was signed on November 11, 1918, ending with the victory of the Allies with the United States on its side. In this way, World War I lasted for more than 4 years, and the number of people killed was enormous. The total number of all deaths reached to more than 10 million. Later, Germany and its allies who lost the war also lost a large amount of money for compensation and much of their vast land. Among the compensations made by the countries, the compensation made by Germany was the largest, reaching 130 billion marks. This was equivalent to 25 years of Germany's national budget, equivalent to 200 trillion yen when converted to the current value of the Japanese yen. Furthermore, many empires collapsed, which then later led to World War II.